you know what? The public just deserves it. They deserve to hear the truth. What's going on? Because if you're waiting on the Arena Football League to tell you the truth, guys, you're going to wait for a long time.
Welcome back to another episode of Arena Side of Press Pass. I'm your host, Anthony Carter. And on today's show, we have Louisiana Voodoo's head coach, James Shiver. Welcome to the show, Coach. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. And, we'll dive into all the issues that's surrounding the league and, of course, your team as well. We'll get into all of that in just a bit. But first, take me through what the atmosphere of arena football like in your part of Louisiana and just how has your team been so far, just a couple weeks into the season.
Well, the atmosphere is great, man. I mean, our fans are amazing. We have a really good Facebook page and Instagram page. Our social media is really good, and our fan page is really great, man. I mean, they have some avid fans. Some of them are like the Sands in the Hourglass or the Days of Our Lives type of fans, and like real soap operas. And some are straight haters. And some guys are just love the game, man. I mean, there was one guy on there that actually and made his own mask that looks like our logo. And he was planning on wearing it for the next game. I mean, we got some crazy fans. Football is really big in Louisiana, and so the atmosphere was huge. And just the name of the Arena Football League, it carries a lot of weight. It's not how indoor football for years. I used to coach indoor football in the late '90s and early 2000s, and it was like, what is that? What is that? But arena football, everybody knows what that is, and it's been great since we've been in Lafayette.
And what's that like? And what does that mean for you as a coach when you're dealing with the fans, interacting with fans, getting to coach new players? What's that like for you as a coach?
It's great for me, man, because that's what I do for a living. I've been a coach for forever, since the year 2000, and so as a high school coach, I've been a high school coach for 20 years. So I'm used to dealing with the fans. Sometimes on a Thursday or a Friday, the Booster Club guys will be popping in my office. What's the game plan? No, I tell people this all the time. I mean, nobody goes to the light company and says, "Man, my lights went out on Thursday. What you got to do about it?" But if you lose a football game, your booster clubs there want to know what you're going to do about the loss on Monday. So as far as dealing with fans, it's great, man. And that's part of it. I always say if you buy a ticket, you've put in money to voice your opinion. So please voice it. And I've never turned down, resisted anyone, positive or negative. If they have something to say, I don't mind talking to them about it. I'm not just gonna sit there and be like, "Hey, mind your own business" or whatever. Hey, if you have an idea, I've always been one of those guys that thinks more heads have better reasoning and better resources. So tell me what your opinion is. It might not be the greatest opinion, or maybe it's something I didn't think of already.
With this startup of arena football and it starting back up in Louisiana, leading up to take us back to even before the first game against Philadelphia Soul, which we'll get into that in just a bit. The team moved from Lake Charles to Lafayette. What was behind that decision?
Well, I will tell you this, Anthony. That I'm from here, and so I did make some statements on the media, and I don't regret the statements that I made because I was here. I was actually feet on the ground, seeing it firsthand. Lake Charles started off on fire for the arena football. All right, it was. I mean, things did, dude. It was awesome. I would go to the casino in Lake Charles, for the weekend, and everybody would stop me, "Coach, what's going on with the voodoo? Man, we're so fired up. Can't wait for the voodoo. Can't wait for the voodoo." I think there was some terrible management issues on our side. Definitely a lack of communication, which is kind of the trademark for the new Arena Football League is a lack of communication. But at that point, there was a lack of communication. And there were some things like that, but whenever we always our social media page was always upheld. There were some awesome media people as far as like KPLC was great. And the visit Lake Charles was great. But like I'll give you a perfect example. We had training camp in Lake Charles. We stayed at the Horseshoe Casino, for 10 days. All right. Not one time was there a media that came to a practice. Not one time did was there anything on the news about practice. Nothing. It was like quiet. It was like just like trying to keep it a secret almost. You know, I don't understand what that was about. And so even like as far as facilities, you know, I was asked, you know, about facilities, which I'll be honest with you, man. Michael Castile, great guy. Always was the go-to guy for me. You know, the Hannah who ran the parks on you know, the park that we were at, awesome, great person. Okay. Um, the problem was we were at a baseball facility, so we would go to practice one day. Well, there might be a travel ball team on the field, even though we were supposed to be using it, and they wouldn't get off the field for us to have practice. Well, look, we're trying to have training camp. Like this is a professional team, millions of dollars invested, and we can't get on the field that we want to use because there's a travel team on it. You know what I mean? That happened more than once. You know, one night we're trying to have practice, and in the middle of practice, the transformer goes out. Right. The next night, well, it's not working right. The lights aren't working, but halfway, and only a couple of lights work. Are you serious? Like, can we go to a football field somewhere? I mean, is there anything better available? You know, the I get a phone call. Finally, the last night, it was a Thursday night. I never forget. I get a phone call on my way to practice, and usually I'll get a phone call from Travell or from whoever at, you know, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock after practice. How's it going? What's going on? Give us a report, and I'll tell them what's going on. But on this particular day, I'm going to practice, and they said, "This is what's going on. But y'all tell the guys they're checking out in the morning, and we're going to Lafayette." You know, and I'm thinking, man, I have a whole week's practice organized, and on Friday we're supposed to be scrimmaging, and we're gonna go to Lafayette. Like I already had it all situated, right? So I said, "Hey, no problem. You guys are the bosses. You call the shots, right? We're going to Lafayette." I go. We go to have practice. We had a practice. At the end of practice, it was the end of our real training camp. So all the guys went out to eat together. We had a big old huge, you know, big old huge party area for our food that night. And at the end of the night, you know, we had it at Golden Corral. And I'll never forget, we sang happy birthday to John Forcade. It wasn't even his birthday. We were just messing with him, right? When our coaches and our staff. And you know, all the guys were having a great time. And so I tell them, I said, "Hey guys, tomorrow we're leaving the Golden Nugget and we're moving into the Hilton in Lafayette." And man, they were like, "Well, what's going on?" And I said, the bosses have decided that they can't work with the city of Lake Charles anymore, and we're going to Lafayette." The first night we were in Lafayette. Now this is the truth. Every media outlet reached out to me that night. You know what I mean? They were there at practice. They were filming practice. I mean, it was being since we got to Lafayette, we were always on the news. I mean, every night it was either Channel 3, Fox, Channel 10. You know what I mean? The night that they announced they were moving to Thursday night, you know, George Faust, the sports director, busted loose on the news that night, Thursday night. "Hey, the arena football team's leaving Lake Charles. They're coming to Lafayette." So Lafayette just opened their arms and they accepted a team in a week. You know what I mean? Which is unheard of. I mean, have you ever heard of a team in one week being able to have anybody in the stands, let alone as many people as we had in the stands, in probably the oldest arena known to indoor arena football history, probably? You know, we were playing in. You know, no, that's just a tough sell, but it happened. I mean, the city definitely opened their arms. They accepted us. It was amazing. The move to Lafayette was unbelievable. That night, Lafayette Christian opened up their practice facility too, their actual game facility. We were on turf. We scrimmaged each other. We had a great scrimmage. The news station stayed the entire practice, filming everything, and we were on the news like every night that week. The next week. I mean, it was amazing. The newspapers reaching out to me, you know, all that. It was unbelievable, man. And so it was just a great reception and a great, great thing.
So that move that actually benefited you and morale. How did the players feel about it at that time?
Well, the players were great because we had never been accepted in Lake Charles outside of them living there. I mean, and the Horseshoe Casino. If you weren't at the Horseshoe, you wouldn't know that the team was in town. You know, the Horseshoe and also at Coshada Casino Resort. You know, that was the tribe did a great job with us. You know, helping us the whole time, and Mr. Bobby Thornton and Chairman Cernick, amazing with the team, and gotta extend a huge thank you to them because they did some great things for us. We just never had a front office presence, you know, in anywhere we've been. You know, you and I were talking earlier, and I was telling you that family isn't always blood. I have an assistant coach named Corey Diaz, right? And Corey Diaz got thrown from being just a coach to also being a front office person. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for Corey, the net system wouldn't even have been up, because we were sitting there thinking, man, I don't know if we're going to get this done in time. Nothing came in. The league office didn't send us a net system. They sent us the worst dashboards known to man. For you guys that don't know what a dashboards are, those are the walls on the side. Whenever I unloaded them, which I unloaded every single one off of the truck, okay? And when I tell you, they were wavy, they were going the wrong direction, I was like, how is this even going to work? You know what I mean? Like, how are we going to put these together? Well, we unloaded the whole truck, and there still was no pads. There was no pads that were sent to us. The padding that goes on the dashboards, zero. We found the padding, Anthony, in the Cajun Dome where the Arena Football 2 team used to play. There was an Arena 2 team called the Lafayette Roughnecks years ago. And they had stored these pads so long ago. They were so dusty and dirty, and they were on the third floor of the facility, in a storage facility. They didn't even know they had them. They didn't even know they owned them. Which at the same time we thought, well, maybe they have the net system too. So we went all over the building looking for the net system, but we couldn't find it. Right. And so, but it was John Forcade wanted to be an investigator, and so we sent him to the building, looking around everywhere, and he walked the whole building, and he found those pads. And so they brought the pads. And so, I was also telling you this earlier. My daughter was playing in the semifinals for the softball state championship at noon on Friday. There was a huge event on Thursday called Fins and Feathers. It's a Gleason Foundation for ALS. And it's a huge event. It raised probably close to $150,000 for that night. Full of people that were there. In fact, we all went. The coaches went. The players went. We ate great. It was wonderful. Okay, it was wonderful. All right. Had a great time at the event, but we didn't get to inside our building until 3:00 on Friday. Okay. So from 3:00 on Friday, my coaches stayed. Most of our players stayed in that building from 3:00 on Friday till after the game on Saturday night. We slept there. Well, we didn't sleep. We stayed there all night, setting up everything. The turf was already down, but these dashboards, there was basically no way to connect them. We had to beat them together with sledgehammers and mauls to get the system hooked together. We get it hooked together. We found the pads that we found from the cage dome. We pad the whole walls. Some people were like, "Oh, but in the end zones, the pads were turned backwards where you can see the Velcro." They were turned backwards because they said the Roughnecks, Wildcatters, whatever it was from the Arena 2, were on the signs. That's why they were turned backwards. The net system, the building was built in 1939. The rafters were not made for the net system, and there was no lift that was like sent to us to use. There was no directions on how to do a net system. There was a picture. I know that Anthony, as a dad who's raised 4 daughters, sometimes I'll open up their Christmas presents on Christmas morning, and I look at the picture and try to assemble it. And there's always a little bag of extra parts that I don't know what they're for. And so guess what? So we did the net system with a welder, an oil-field welder. He puts it together, and we hang the net system. And when I tell you, it was the ugliest thing. I like to say it's like the song where you go home at 2 with a 10, but you wake up at 10 with a 2. It was like that, man. I mean, these were the worst nets possible. Okay, but they were functional. The ball bounced off the nets. We played with it, right? I mean, yes, they weren't pretty to look at. And every fan that was there, 90% of them will tell you, man, look, they weren't pretty, but they worked. And they were happy that it was the game went on. The fans came down, our guys played with the kids. It was unbelievable. That's what sold the fans on the team. There was the Festival International going on that weekend. Anybody knows anything about Louisiana knows Festival International in Lafayette is like Jazz Fest in New Orleans. A ton of people go to that. It's a huge, huge event. Okay. At the same time we were playing, UL was having their spring game. All right. UL Lafayette. UL Raging Cajun baseball team that's ranked number 14 was playing a home series that weekend also. So there was a lot going on. For us to have that many people in the crowd, I was unbelievable. And man, when I tell you that our Facebook page has blown up since then, when's the game? When's the next game? Of course, no communications from the league. I think maybe they're in witness protection program or something. Who knows what's going on? But can't get a press release out to the fans. Can't tell them what's going on. We can't tell them anything. It's like a secret. It's almost like, hey, you want to buy tickets, but we're hiding them from you. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to find these tickets to go to the game. So Anthony, it's been such a crazy show. But when I tell you that my staff doesn't want to fail, I mean, I got four, NFL guys. I got three NFL guys and one AFL Hall of Famer that they don't want to fail. They would do anything not to fail. I mean, I teach young men how to become better fathers, better husbands, men like business leaders and future leaders of America. You know what I'm saying? I teach them that. That's what football does in high school. And I just feel like I couldn't fail because I didn't want them to see me fail. I didn't want anybody to see me fail. That there's these little memes on the Facebook all the time of, if you ever fail, there's always a kid watching or there's always somebody watching. You know what I mean? Well, that's just me, man. I don't want to fail. I want to overcome failure. I mean, and I want to overcome adversity. Well, my team stayed there. We were dog tired, man. When we were coaching the game, literally my mind was on where was I going to sleep at? I can't wait to sleep and when this is over. It wasn't on how bad are we going to beat the Philadelphia Soul. During the game, hey, we hit 2 drop kicks. We threw all kind of touchdowns. The final score was actually 55-18, not 53, because we hit 2 drop kicks and nobody knew how to score that. I'm sure that was a league record, but you never heard mention of that because, again, no communication from the league office. But yeah, Anthony, I think we did the best we could with what we had, and I know the fans know we did the best we could with what we had.
How much, I know you just mentioned the communication, how much involved is the league with the Voodoo? Are they the owners? Or who is your owner, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then also adding on to what you mentioned about getting the equipment and not having the right equipment. Is the league in charge of providing the dashboards and the nets? Like what goes into the decisions behind all of that?
So yeah, so the league reached out to me at the beginning, and they're like, "Hey, coach, do we have a place to ship all of the shoulder pads and the helmets and the football uniforms and the t-shirts and the spirit packages and everything else?" I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, ship them to my house. I have a big garage." Okay, and so they would ship me everything. So everything was going to my house. Of course, no front office, no office, no nothing in Lake Charles. Uh, so I always assumed that they were going to send me what was needed. I was always told and I would call. I would call all the time, and I'd say, "Hey, Matt," because Matt Hines was at the league office, and I'd say, "Hey, Matt, is there anything I didn't order yet? Is there anything I should be doing because we have no front office? I just want to make sure I don't miss any deadlines." "Oh no, coach, you're good. Everything's good." So at that point, Anthony, I feel like the league is providing every single thing that we need. They've always had at that point. And even whenever it was obvious that it wasn't going to happen, which was like on Wednesday and Tuesday or Wednesday before the game, that there was no net system coming, and that the dashboards were a myth. We had heard about them. We knew that they might exist somewhere, but there was never confirmation that they were coming. It was a 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday, and these guys text me, "Hey man, I'm almost there with the dashboards." And I'm thinking, "Oh, good. I live 30 minutes away. Let's see if I can round up some coaches to come help me unload a whole truck of dashboards by myself with a couple of coaches." And our building is so old, Anthony, that they don't even have a forklift. Like, I don't know. It's almost like the land before time. I mean, there is no forklift sitting around anywhere, man. I mean, so every single thing was hand unloaded. Okay. So we unloaded all those dashboards, and we had to drag them inside the building. Then we had to beat them and pound on them to get them put together. And how it is. If it was brand new and it was easy to put together, hey, look, that would have been one thing, but it wasn't. It was a lot of work, man. It was a lot of work. In fact, there was at one point at about 2:30 on the Saturday, my wife calls me and says, "Hey, is the game gonna happen?" I looked at my phone. It's 2:30. I swallowed. I made a big swallow of my throat. Swallowed my anxiety down, and I said, "I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna be done in time." And I had to take a deep breath, overcome it, and say, "You know what? I'm gonna make sure it happens." Pregame, I wouldn't even get to do pregame with my people. You know what I'm saying? Thank goodness I put Coach Ted Roberson out there, and he did pregame. Ted was an old indoor arena quarterback from years back. Let him do the pregame while everybody else was sitting there putting everything together at the last minute. And literally last minute. We finished at 6, and the game started at 6:30.
Now, after that game, did the league reach out to you about what the nets were and all the equipment? Did they have any type of feedback after that game?
Well, let me start with that. That's a great question, Anthony. So on the Saturday, on the Sunday, I get a phone call. Man, the Nets were terrible. Everybody's eating us up on the internet. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? How about if y'all play on the road and we get you the right net system? Hey, that's a great answer, right? You're gonna send us the right net system, not a problem. Okay. This is Lee Hutton and myself having this conversation. How will we spin that to the media? I said, easy spin. We're gonna just tell them that our facility wasn't safe and we're gonna work on it. We're gonna get the safety problems fixed for next week. All right, and we'll be back the next week against Orlando. All right. Oh, that's a great idea. That's how we're gonna spin it. That was the press release. That was what it was gonna be. That was the lie. I helped make the lie. Okay. And so I'm thinking, okay, no worries. All right. Hold on. Are you there? Yep. So I said, hey, no worries. I uh I don't hear from him the next day. I don't hear from him at all on Monday. I'm worried because Tuesday is coming around and my guys haven't been paid yet. Now, keep in mind, Anthony, I haven't said this to anybody, but on the Saturday, I get a phone call literally at noon telling me that my players had to check out of the hotel because all the hotels were rented for Festival International, and that the league sent me a text that we're going to figure out where we're going to sleep. We'll probably have to sleep out of town for a couple nights for the festival, and then we'll move back into town. That was the text message I had on my phone. Never questioned anything. Come to find out, Anthony, that's not the truth. Okay, yeah, we had to move out of that hotel for Festival International, but the players had no place to stay. And so at halftime, I started texting the league, finding out where we're going that night because I want to be able to tell the guys after the game. We had a big lead, and I just was gonna, there was no reason for me to focus on the game at that point. So I sent a text, hey, where are the guys sleeping at tonight? I'm thinking maybe in a little town called Doosan, maybe in a little town called Opelousas. They got these little surrounding areas with hotels, and I thought maybe one of those little areas. Okay. Crickets, crickets, crickets. A text message comes back sometime in the fourth quarter. I get it when the game is ending. And it says, Coach, send the guys home. We're going to regroup and start over again next week. Now, Anthony, half of my team is from other parts of the United States. If I send my guys home, how do I get them back? How do they get home without their paychecks? You know what I'm saying? How do they get home? You know? Instead, all the guys that are local, which is half my team, thank goodness I picked up half of my team as local guys. And I say local, I mean New Orleans, which is actually 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away. Houston, which is 2 or 3 hours away. Shreveport, you know what I mean? I say that's kind of local because people in Louisiana travel about that much, on a weekly basis. But for the rest of the world, that's not local. And some of my guys are California, Jacksonville, in Florida area, all over the United States are some of my guys. All right. And so send them home and let's regroup. That was not acceptable. All right. So I go to my guys. Now listen, in saying all this, there are no showers in our arena. Our arena, when I tell you quite literally Land Before Time, it's a 1939 built arena. Okay. There's no showers. The locker rooms are maybe the worst in the history of the world. But it's the actual college that owns it was going to remodel them for us. Like they're willing to do things to help us. The college has been great. Okay. We just probably shouldn't have been in that arena. Okay. But to make a long story short, at this occasion, that was passed. That was all passed. We had to do it. All right. Now my guys haven't showered and they don't know what's next. They don't have a place to stay. I'm telling them what I was just told was, hey, send you home. But so, of course, my coach has come up with some money. Here's some money, guys. Spend the night, a couple nights. We're going to pay for it until we get reimbursed from the league. Don't worry about nothing. No reason to worry yet because there's never been a red flag for us. The story that was spun out of Philadelphia was the coach caused the problems. The people got arrested. They're thrown out of their hotel. It was never, hey, we're broken. We don't have any money to pay anybody. You know what I mean? It was always a spin on something else. So, of course, we help our players out as best as we can. We get them hooked up in hotels, and some of them, Coach Corey took some out to eat that night at Waffle House. Everything else is closed. It's late at night, so they go to Waffle House and they eat, and then they're all on their own. And we're gonna play it by ear. We're supposed to get paid on Tuesday. We're gonna talk. We'll have practice Tuesday night. Well, on Sunday when we make up the life not to play, at home and possibly play on the road, the word was you guys are going to come to Minnesota. Okay, sounds good. We're going to be in Minnesota on next Saturday. That's the plan. That was the plan given to me from Lee Hutton. All right. Now I'm sure Anthony at some point he looks at the stats and he realizes that we beat the crap out of Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? And that, hey, maybe everybody's right. Maybe our roster is as stacked as possible. Maybe we are as good as advertised. Do you think he was going to bring Louisiana to Minnesota to take a loss? Minnesota had just lost the weekend before, to Nashville. No, sir. The only right move for them was to bring that Philadelphia team who was, quite literally maybe 2 or 3 players left from the original Philadelphia team and whatever semi-pro team of the week they could pick up. All right. And so that's the route that that's the route that Minnesota played last Saturday. Okay. How do we disband the Louisiana team? We'll just give them a bye, and their players don't get paid for 2 weeks now, and they don't have housing, so their players will have to go home. Okay. Well, Anthony, guess what? Other teams in this league are calling my players starting that week, trying to pick them up. Now, how does that even possible? That's definitely tampering as far as the contracts go. But in this league, apparently we just make up the rules as we go, man. So listen, they're calling my guys, they're texting my guys. Hey, what about coming to this team? What about going to that team? And meanwhile, we have a group chat. We talk every day. We Zoom a couple times, and we tell them what's going on. In the meantime, we found an ownership group. We found 2 different ownership groups. Okay, that would own our team and not have to worry about going through the league anymore. Okay. Well, Travell gets on the phone with them, and they're like, "Hey, whatever we got to sign, tell them to take it. Just take over and let's go run with it." Absolutely, we did. But it became such obvious. It's so obvious after our game and all the turmoil that kept going that Lee Hutton was really the problem with the Arena Football League. And no communication. Always the smooth talking. What's going on is, it's always a story, man. And it's a great story. The dude is an awesome storyteller. Okay. Because he convinced a lot of people to do some things that there's no way that they would have done at any other occasion. Okay. So anyway, make a long story short, I end up getting the emails for every owner in the league. Okay. The email addresses. And I email them. And I tell them what's going on in Louisiana. And I say, hey, we're close to having a Philadelphia 2.0. The only reason we're not doing that is because my players are very professional. Okay. And most of them are Arena Football League veterans, and they want this to succeed no matter what. Like, they're willing to do whatever it takes to make the league succeed. Okay. But it's obvious to all of us that the problem is Lee Hutton. Well, dude, don't you know that all the owners start reaching out to me right away? All of them. And the weird thing is, the spin to the owners from Hutton was Louisiana is just a terrible safety issue. They can't play a game there. None of that was true, man. You could play right now on there. The net system was always our only problem. Okay. And the funny thing is about that, Anthony, you could send Georgia, who was supposed to play us last week, to Oregon to play with literal rodeo fencing for the dashboard system and 2 inches of padding. Or you could have came to Louisiana where there's softboards, the dashboard system, and 4 inches of Sportex Arena Football 2 turf. Sportex Arena Football 2 dashboard padding. And you would think it's safer in Oregon? No. It's not any safer in Oregon. The problem is Oregon needed to win. They probably had more attendance in their week 1 than we did, or their exhibition game. And so Oregon gets Georgia. But we easily would have been 2-0 playing Georgia at home. Okay. I just think there's so much conspiracy. The fans are right, man. I mean, the soap operas are actually right. It's almost like looking at the United States government, bro. It's like maybe they decided that already. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, who you vote for, it doesn't matter. They picked that already, right? Guess what? It's true. They've already picked it. The whole thing was to break up Louisiana's roster, the best roster in the league, and let everybody keep going how they want. From the beginning, it was always fun that Orlando and Nashville and Albany need to be the top because that's the top places. Hey, you're right, man. They do have great attendance and they do need to be the top, but they didn't do their job because we had the top roster. We had the top team. We just weren't given anything that we needed to have.